Alright, you guys know what time it is. It's time for another Kingdom video. And if you're keeping track at home, this is part 5. Now last time we left off with Kyokai's revenge at chapter 365. Well, with this video, we're going to start off with the conspiracy in the court arc, go to the Fire Dragons of Wei arc, continue on with the State of Ai arc, go into the Koku You Campaign arc, the Bureaucrats Job arc, and finally, the first couple of chapters of the Western Zhao invasion arc. So that's going to take us from chapter 366 to chapter 500. But anyway, you know the drill, guys, so let's get into the video itself. Before we start though, if you haven't subscribed, I would really appreciate if you do that. But anyway, have fun with the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Ko gives birth to Aisei's child. Meanwhile, the Qin army captures the Wei cities of Kaito and Kyo. This is a tribute to Hakuro, says Kanki as he lights the people of Kyo on fire. In Chu, Shunshin was banished by the king for his failure, while Karen was raised to the second commander over the entire army. Now, because the coalition suffered an embarrassing loss, the various states are experiencing internal conflicts linked to politics. The state of Qin shall soon be seeing the fiercest domestic conflict it has ever known, says Riboku. Ever since the Battle of Sai, Sei's position is only strengthened. Now the state of Qin was experiencing financial hardship. Yet despite this, Ryofu decides to spend exorbitant amounts of money on a lavish party. Now assassination attempts have failed thus far, so Ryofu decides to swallow the kingdom with a new tactic, and it will all come to fruition on Aisei's coming of age ceremony. Seikyo continues to gather influential families so that they might defeat Ryofu's faction. Now ever since the incidents at Sai, Seikyo has seen a change in his personality. In a flashback, Sei tells Seikyo that risking his life is necessary for his dream. If he ever wants to unite China, he's got to save the country. Sei then meets with Seikyo's first wife, Rui. She says that if Seikyo ever attempts to seize power again, it will only be after they defeated Ryofu. Rui then heads out for her hometown of Tanryo, a place that she hasn't been to in 10 years. Yoka, a Qin spy in the Zhao courts, finds out that Kakukai of Zhao is secretly making deals with Ryofu. The Zhao army then makes its way to Tanryo, so Ryofu suggests to King Aisei that he go there himself. Seikyo sees through Ryofu's scheming, so he decides to go himself. And with this, the Seikyo army sets forth. Likewise, General Maiko of the Zhao army sets out as well. During the coup 5 years ago, Seikyo threw everyone in jail who opposed him. This even included Juhaku and Ryu. Nevertheless, they stayed by his side afterwards. 1 year earlier, we see Ryofu making a deal with Hokaku of Tanryo. In the now, the Seikyo army fights fiercely with the Zhao army. The Zhao army retreats rather quickly, as the city of Tanryo welcomes Seikyo. He is then greeted by Hokaku, representative of Tanryo's rule. Hokaku was an admirer of Seikyo's attempts at the throne, and so he wants him to aim for the throne once again with the city of Tanryu. After Seikyo refuses, Hokaku decides to get a little more forceful. Reports come into Kanyo that Seikyo has started another rebellion, so Ryofu wants to squash the Seikyo faction completely. Sei then suspects some wrongdoing, so he's going to send in Shin to help save Seikyo. Commander-in-Chief of the Subjugation Army, General Heki, sets out for Tanryo. In a flashback, Sei informs Seki that Seikyo was set up, and that the Haishin unit would be on a search and rescue mission. Hokaku continues to stir up the residents for Seikyo's faux rebellion. En route to Tanryo, Heki was met with the 70,000 strong rebel army. We then see Maiko's Zhao army attacking Heki's army from the flank. Just as things look dire, the Haishin unit enters the scene. The Haishin unit sees early success with their specialist troops, the Haihyo unit, which is comprised of the former Dukyo troops. Ten meets up with Heki, as the general notices that the Haishin strategist has started to grow into her body. Now in the 2 years since the coalition army, Shin has become a 5,000-man commander, and Kyokai is a 1,000-man commander. Shin has now taken up the glaive that he inherited from General Oki. After repelling the Zhao and rebel forces, Shin meets up with Heki. Heki informs Shin about the situation, as they make their way to Tanryo. Hokaku reveals that this is all a plot to drive a wedge between the Qin king and the common citizens. 239 BC, the Battle of Tanryo begins. Speed is key for this mission, otherwise the enemy will take Seikyo's head and surrender. And sure enough, that is exactly what Hokaku has planned. Shin and Kyokai make their way into the city, prepared to save Seikyo before anything happens. Seikyo tells the guards that if they let him out, not only will their families be spared, but they'll be rewarded handsomely. Sometime later, Hokaku finds out that Seikyo has been released from his cell. Seikyo's forces run into some difficulties, but he eventually makes his way to Rui's cell. They claim that Hokaku's plan has failed. As Rui is released from her cell, the girl rushes over to her husband and catches him before he collapses to the ground. Outside, Shin's forces struggle to find Seikyo, or Hokaku. One of the citizens mentions an underground dungeon. As the Haishin unit makes their way there ASAP, Seikyo's injuries have become quite severe, but he promises Rui that he won't die before she returns back. And with her gone, he's now focused solely on Hokaku, the traitor. Rui exits the dungeon and begs for someone to save Seikyo. Despite Hokaku's true intentions, Ryofu will twist the truth to his own benefit and blame Seikyo for everything. Seikyo has heard enough, as he attacks Hokaku with absolute rage. The Haishin unit makes its way to the dungeon, finding Seikyo lying on the ground. In his dying breaths, Seikyo tells Rui to bring his faction together and to support Ise. He's aware of Sei's dream of unifying China, but to achieve such a thing will require a torrent of blood. Shin of the Haishin unit, though you may serve Sei as his sword, do not forget that you are also his shield, says Seikyo. And with this, Seikyo passes away in Rui's arms, and thus ends a tumultuous life. All the implicated military officers are executed after the rebellion, and Hokaku's corpse is desecrated by the citizens. 10 days later, Shin and Rui meet up with Ise. Rui has brought together Seikyo's faction so that they could defeat Ryo. Shin tells Ryofu that he'll never become king, since he doesn't have justice on his side. The Chancellor, however, says that justice resides with the winners. Elsewhere, we see To's army going up against Wei's #1 general, Go-Hei Mei. To is tasked with taking Choyo, which is a highly important strategical point that blocks their way to the rest of China. Shin and Ohan are called to assist To's army, but the two bicker amongst themselves. Save your flirting for when the main event is over. I've been waiting for you two. Wei has set up their army so that it's a gigantic stronghold with no openings. To is sending a request to Osen for reinforcements. You must absolutely not ask Osen's army to come here, says Ohan. Now Osen is surprised that he wasn't requested on the battlefield, as a report comes in that Ohan is participating in the Battle of Choyo. Ohan says that Osen must protect the Kakuya region from the Zhao, otherwise it will ruin their plans of capturing Choyo. To gain the advantage against the Wei, Ohan wants to split into 3 units and attack at the same time on the same day. Go-Hei Mei says that each Qin general has its own strengths and weaknesses, but To, on the other hand, is without any glaring flaws. Great General Rei-O is not here to protect Choyo, but to kill General To. Now the 3 teams carrying out the main attacks for Qin are the Roka-Omi army, the Gyokyu-Ho unit, and the Haishin unit. Now To will be acting as a decoy. Now on the 3rd day, when the sun has risen to its peak, each unit will destroy the enemy and break into the enemy's headquarters. And amazingly enough, the timing for the 3 units matched each other perfectly. General Rambi Haku slices To across the cheek. Now the great generals of Wei are known as the 7 fire dragons of Wei. Turns out they opposed each other, and a group of 3 killed the others. The 3 were then thrown into jail for 14 years, but Go-Hei Mei got them released. Now the 3 are Rei-O, the ruthless strategist, Gaimo, the warrior who claimed the head of over 100 generals, and Earl Shi, the strongest spear wielder in Wei's history. Gaimo then appears before the Haishin unit, looking for Shin. Gaimo slaughters his way through the men and proceeds to call out Shin for a duel. "You the idiot that's calling for me?" responds Shin. Gaimo continues to egg him on, so Shin willingly takes the bait. And with this clash, Shin is thrown right off of his horse. Shin's hands are shaking from Gaimo's strength, but he's not going to back down. Gaimo notices that Shin's glaive skills could use some work, but his boldness and tenacity more than make up for it. Just then, we see that the Wei army was able to capture Ten. Ten notices a Qin flag and calls out for Kyokai. Kyokai loses sight of Ten, but manages to take one of the Wei soldiers as a hostage. At camp, Shin blames Kyokai for not being able to save Ten. Kyokai wants to set out and rescue her, but at this point, it would be a suicide mission. The Wei troops surround and antagonize Ten while she sits in a cage. Shin wants to set out and save Ten, but the Haishin unit says that it's too risky of a play. Kyokai recommends that they do a prisoner exchange with the soldier that they captured. Now one of the soldiers wonders why Shin is so adamant about saving Ten, as he suspects that Ten is his woman. Shin says that Ten is like a little sister to him, and with this, the Haishin unit prepares for the prisoner exchange. Gaimo wonders what Ten hopes to achieve with Shin, and depending on her answer, he'll either kill her or let her live. The next day, the 2 armies exchange their prisoners. In a flashback, Ten reveals that she wants to help Shin fulfill his dream, and to achieve happiness together. Upon returning to Shin, Ten gives out orders for how they'll win this battle. Meanwhile, Ohan's army is making swift progress in their pursuits of reaching the Wei HQ. Despite Ohan's progress, Go-Hei Mei is not worried in the least, saying that the real battle has yet to begin. Wei then releases their armored war chariots on Ohan's army. The chariots, however, were just a decoy, so that the Earl of Shi could blindside them from the flank. Wei's troops then move out to cut out Ohan's retreat, meaning that they are now surrounded. Ohan says that they will move forward and take the enemy commander's head. Kanjo says that Osin, Ohan's father, would never try something so risky. Ohan decides to push forward, as Kanjo decides to pull out. Ohan uses Ryu Shi on Earl of Shi, as the Wei general responds in kind. Now at 15 years old, Earl Shi had already slayed 500 men with a spear, and it's very clear that this talent far exceeds Ohan's with the spear. Now the reason that the Fire Dragons of Wei fought each other is because Tairaji of the Fire Dragons killed Earl of Shi's sister, Kika. In fact, Earl Shi killed the 3 Fire Dragons who opposed him all by himself. Realizing that they're in trouble, Ohan gives the orders to withdraw at full speed. Ohan will bring up the rear so that he can witness Earl Shi's spearmanship just a little bit more. That way he'll be ready for tomorrow's battle. Now Earl Shi and Kika were step-siblings, but they wanted to get married to each other nonetheless. Now when Earl of Shi went off into battle, Kika was married to Tairaji, a man famous for being a wife killer. Now Kika refused to love anyone else but her brother, so Tairaji ended her life there and then. Naturally, Earl Shi went into a rage and hasn't filled that hole in his heart ever since. In the now, Earl Shi gives Ohan everything he can handle, and then some. Ohan's unit looks to break the Wei's line, as Kanjo attacks the enemy encirclement from the rear. Now Shin's unit was able to make solid progress on the second day, while Ohan's unit suffered a devastating loss. Now the entirety of the 7 kingdoms is eagerly waiting to see who comes out on top of this war. Will it be Tou, or will it be Go-Hei Mei? But Tou sees it another way. This is an opportunity for the youth to make a name for themselves. Shin wants to take down Go-Hei Mei for all of China to see, and if he does so, it will be his first true step in becoming a great general under the heavens. It is now the 3rd day between the Qin and Wei armies, the day where Ohan's plan is supposed to come to fruition. Ten and the Wei strategists attempt to anticipate each other's moves, as Gaimo will serve as the bait. Elsewhere, Ohan slays Earl Shi of Wei, and with this, they make their move to Go-Hei Mei's location. Shin and Gaimo trade blows with each other, as Ten employs her plan. Kyokai orders the right wing to halt and to make a beeline for the enemy's headquarters. Wei counters by having their left wing focus their attention on Shin. But this was all part of Ten's plan, because that's when Ryokoku of the Tou army comes in for the counterattack. And with this, Gaimo's strategist has been outplayed. Shin tells Gaimo that Oki and Renpa weren't avoiding him. They just didn't consider him a worthy opponent. Gaimo says that war is not as romantic as Oki made it out to be. Rather, it's a slaughterhouse for the strong to butcher the weak. And with this, Gaimo takes his leave. Now the numerous Qin forces close in on Go-Hei Mei and the Wei HQ. Kyokai, however, wants to be the one that claims Go-Hei Mei's head. Go-Hei Mei thought that Kanki would be his main rival going forward, but it seems like the Qin youth are destined for greatness. Ohan and Roku Omi's units are meant to create an opening for the Haishin unit, so that they can deliver the decisive blow. Kyokai reaches the headquarters and proceeds to slaughter the numerous Wei soldiers. She then quickly and effectively slices off the leader's head. Unfortunately, this was a fake. Set fire to the surrounding region. Raise high a smoke signal to alert the entire battlefield of the fall of Wei's HQ and the Qin army's victory. And with this, Qin has won the Battle of Choyo, with Ohan's brilliantly executed plan. Go-Hei Mei tells Ryo that they've lost the HQ, but with Qin focusing all their efforts on the offensive, their leader, General Tou, is utterly exposed. The Battle of Choyo is not over yet, says Ryo. Just then, Shin comes into the picture with his glaive ready to kill. Go-Hei Mei pretends that Ryo is himself, so Shin takes down Ryo in one swift strike. Though Wei has suffered an embarrassing loss, Go-Hei Mei claims he'll have the last laugh in this era of warring kingdoms. And with this, the Qin officially win the Battle of Choyo over the Wei army. At nighttime, Ohan rests up from his fierce battle with Earl of Shi. Tou then relays orders that they are to set up base in Choyo by constructing a fortress. And this is all it means to weaken the state of Wei, and ultimately, kill off the weaker kingdoms. 2 months have passed since the Battle of Choyo, and the fortress is coming along quite nicely. The city of Sanyo has seen a lot of growth too, with their population doubling in size. Zhao realizes they need to act if they want to prevent Qin from expanding ever more. In addition, the state of Chu is strengthening their military in earnest. yet their true strength remains a mystery. Most developments hinge on what happens next in Kanyo, as Sei's coming-of-age ceremony approaches. At Kanyo, the officials discuss the funds of Choyo, as the doors to the throne room open up and the Queen Mother walks through. I was thinking of having the territories of Sanyo and Choyo handed over to the royal harem faction, says the Queen Mother. She proposes that Ro-ai be the governor of Sanyo. Rishi recognizes this man as he suspects that the Queen Mother is going to use him against the Aisei faction. Ryo-fu has no objections, and since 2 of the 3 factions are in favor, they have the majority. Afterwards, Shoban says that this move by the royal harem was outside their prediction, and they should investigate this Ro-ai character. Now with the Queen Mother returning to the public space, Ko says that this is a good opportunity for her to see her first grandchild. Meanwhile, the Queen Mother wishes to be with Ro-ai and Sanyo, and to eventually raise their own kingdom there. 2 children then come running in, as it appears that Ro-ai and the Queen Mother are their parents. Sei asks Shohei if switching governors in Choyo or Sanyo could provide an opening for another state to attack. Shohei says that Wei doesn't have the funds at the moment to attack, but Zhao and Riboku warn caution. He has already sent out Kaioki to snuff out any plots that should happen there. Now the land of Taigen, a region to the north of Tanryo, was seeing a huge influx of people. We have arrived, Ro-ai. This is Taigen, says the Queen Mother. Not only that, they declared that the region of Taigen was from now on to be known as the State of Ai. No matter what era it may be, 'tis always a woman who upsets nations. The Haishin unit fights off the Wei army at Choyo, as word comes out that the governor of Taigen has risen up and declared his own state. Now Taigen has seen a huge influx of people, so declaring war in the region would surpass the conflict at Tanryu. Now, contrary to everyone's expectations, the state of Ai grew in strength as an independent power. Ai uses their exorbitant amounts of money to bribe Chu into attacking Qin. Now, even though Qin didn't recognize Ai as a real state, if the other states do, then the conclusion is all the more clear. Ryo-fu visits the state of Ai to tell the Queen Mother that her elopement is nothing more than childish nonsense. Ryo-fu confesses that he always loved her, and that she's the only woman that stole his heart away. My dear Biki, farewell. May you spend the rest of your days here in restful peace. Now the Queen Mother looks to chase him, but has second thoughts. Elsewhere, General To is elevated to Qin's second-grade general. Shin and Ohan are both elevated to 5,000-man commanders. Now it turns out that Ohan was in line to become general, but To was against it. Now being a 5,000-man commander requires one to stop relying on others and to achieve results. It's an important step in becoming a general, so To didn't want Ohan bypassing it. Shin will now take up defense of Choyo on his own. The other states sent gold to Ai to bolster its strength. Ro-ai then wonders if they should use the gold to increase the military and take Kanyo for themselves. Though Sei has been concentrating his efforts on bringing down Ryo-fu, perhaps it's time he puts an end to his mother's suffering. It is now the 9th year of Sei's reign, and this would settle the struggle between Ryo-fu once and for all. In addition, the struggle against the Queen Mother's faction as well. Kyokai is now a 3,000-man commander, but she will not go independent. She intends to stay with the Haishin unit until the very end. Ryo-fu has no intentions of making the first move against Aisei. He's relying on the state of Ai to do that for him. The King of Chu has recognized Ai's strength, which means that Ro-ai is in line to become the king himself. Ro-ai has no redeeming qualities, which is why he feels uncomfortable being called king. Now the Queen Mother would throw herself at Ro-ai like a demon, and he was absolutely scared out of his wits. I mean, what kind of pussy is he? When she became pregnant with his child, she desired to rest and heal her weary heart. A report comes in that Qin is sending an invasion force to lay siege to the state of Ai. Now Qin is short of troops at the moment, due to the many campaigns that it's currently holding, which means that central Qin is relatively unguarded. Now the matter that they are suggesting is no trivial thing. They'll have to risk it all in an attempt to grab power and riches beyond their wildest dreams. We will attack on King Aisei's coming-of-age ceremony, says the Queen Mother. We then see the Haishin unit on a mission to capture the city of En. They then receive a letter for their next target after En. The coming-of-age ceremony is set to take place in the city of Yo. Surprisingly, the Queen Mother decides to grace Sei with her presence. At long last, the time for me to reap the harvest from my 23-year-long investment has finally come, says Ryo-fu. The ceremony is set to take place in Kinnan Temple. All the important people take their spots as the 31st king of Qin, Aisei, walks into the building. Meanwhile, the state of Ai's army makes its way through Kankoku Pass. Now it seems that they have special permission from the king himself to be here. They have a letter with the royal seal. Aisei stands before the royal shrine, seeking the approval of his venerable ancestors to be officially crowned as king. Aisei shows his thanks to his various ancestors, as the Queen Mother seems quite irritated by the whole ceremony. Now, many men within the Ai army are under Ryofu's influence, and he wants them to burn down Kanyo in a sea of flame. The royal family will be done away with, and with the help of Mobu's army, Ryofu will come to the rescue and take all the power for himself. A report then comes in that 30,000 soldiers from Ai have bypassed Kankoku Pass. Royal Ai is horrified by the prospects of war. Now, it seems that there was a forgery of the royal seal, which is how they were able to bypass Kankoku Pass. Not only that, they could also use the fake seal to recruit an unlimited number of soldiers from the Qin army for their cause. Though the rivalry between Sei and Ryofu is coming to an end, the latter has rather enjoyed their little chess match against each other. Ryofu wants to put an end to the ceremony, but Aisei says that they will continue and see it through to the end. Ryofu then suspects that Aisei knew the attack was coming beforehand. The Ai army brutally executes anyone that stands in their way. Ryofu finds it odd that Aisei wants to continue with the ceremony, but it turns out that the king has the Shin unit en route to stopping the rebels. In addition, 10,000 soldiers were outposted in the city of Sai to ambush the Ai army. The Shin unit then crosses the Wei River to head off the Ai army before they reach Kanyo. It's finally time for the last battle between Sei and Ryofu. Doesn't matter what gets thrown at us. We have to win this so that Shin can be united under Aisei. The Shin unit creates a wedge formation with their boats as they encounter the Ai army on the shore. They use a surprise arrow attack orchestrated by 10, allowing them to reach the shore and start fighting. Meanwhile, the rest of the rebel army has reached Kanyo City, as the siege is already underway. Now, the reason that the Shin unit came back to the capital is because 10 cracked a code within a letter that was sent by a mysterious person. Now, Aisei told Ko that a struggle would happen within the royal court, and that she would have to trust him until he returned to her. Ai manages to open the gates to Kanyo from the inside, and this was all thanks to the assistance of Ryofu. Aisei is then officially crowned the 31st king of Qin. Shin notices that the Ai army is pouring into the city, as they make their way there post-haste. Just then, a black cavalry unit burst onto the scene by smashing its way through the Ai soldiers. And these are the elite personal soldiers under Shohei. Now, the coded message that was delivered to the Shin unit came from Shohei himself, which is quite surprising because he's part of Ryofu's faction, which means that Shohei has officially decided to cut ties with Ryofu. He will now accompany Shoban to Kanyo so as to assist in quelling the unrest. And with this, Shohei's intentions become all too clear, as Ryofu is none so pleased. Nevertheless, the Chancellor seems unconcerned by this development, as he believes it won't diminish his strength by even the slightest. Shoban expresses his utmost gratitude to Shohei. Shohei then admits that he doesn't fully grasp the full extent of Ryofu's ambition. Meanwhile, the gates of Kanyo continue to open up from the inside, as the Shin unit does their best to quell the rebellion. Ten reminds Shin that they cannot fail like they did in Tanryo, in which Seikyo lost his life to the rebel forces. Shin then reminds his unit that they must do everything in their power to protect the children of Aisei. Shin recalls a conversation he had with Aisei about his children, and not wanting anything bad to happen to them, Shin goes on a killing rampage. Meanwhile, there's quite a bit of nervous tension at the royal harem. Ko will protect her child with her own life. As they get ready to head to the secret passageway, Sei and Ryofu head to Tenbi Palace to have a little chat with one another. Ryofu warns Aisei that unifying China is no easy task, and it's certainly something that mere mortals can't accomplish. Aisei is aware that Ryofu smuggled Ro-Ai into the harem, which makes him responsible for this current crisis. But this will be the last time that Ryofu undermines the king, as he will be stripped of his power. The Ai army closes in on the royal harem, as Shin is hellbent on stopping them. Ryofu says that everything depends on money. It is the greatest invention and discovery in human history. As a young man, Ryofu understands that money was more powerful than any sword or spear. In the now, he postulates that he can make the citizens happy through the use of money. In this hypothetical scenario, he could avoid the bloodshed created by the warring states. In 10 years, he postulates that he could make Qin the most affluent state in all of China. Qin would shoulder the role of industry and circulating resources throughout the other states. Now, if Sei succeeds in unifying China, an age of unprecedented darkness will envelop the entire country. Ryofu says that if this is his real dream, he's an insane sociopath. In the meantime, Kanyo is burning. Now, the Juteki tribe was conquered by Qin over a century ago, and they've been waiting for this day for a long time to exact their revenge. Shin is stabbed in the abdomen as the archers on the wall start shooting at the Shin unit. Denyu protects Shin with his body, so that he may be protected from harm. Now Ryofu reminds Aisei that the war will never come to an end. You have finally realized just how great of a mistake the path you intended to take was. Aisei believes he can bring an end to the warfare because the true nature of mankind is that of light. Light is passed down from one individual to the next, and that's how it will shine with an even greater radiance. That is why I will abolish warfare from this world, proclaims Aisei. And by creating a unified China, Aisei will create a world where man need not to kill one another. The two leaders are on totally different ends of the spectrum, but Ryofu admits that the king has turned into a splendid man. It was intended for Rei and Ko to be locked in the underground passage, but the two suspected something devious and managed to escape. Unfortunately, they got spotted pretty quickly by the Ai army. Yo-chan will distract the pursuers as she instructs Ko to escape with Rei. The soldiers look to cut down Yo, but Shin intervenes at the last moment to prevent this from happening. "Man, you are one gutsy palace girl, I gotta say," says Shin. Shin finds himself quickly surrounded, but he swiftly dispatches of the threat. The Haishin unit comes onto the scene as Shin wants to capture as many officers as possible to expose Ryofu as the culprit behind this mess. Shin introduces himself to Sei's daughter, saying that he's his dad's best buddy. The struggle continues on as the Haishin unit prevents the Ai army from pouring into Kanyo. A trumpet rings out, signaling the arrival of Shohei and his band of followers. Shoban wonders how Shohei will perform in the battlefield, and it turns out that he's even stronger than General Mobu. A wall of soldiers is erected behind the enemy, leaving Duke Juteki with nowhere to run. All they need to do now is hold out, until Shohei's blade reaches Duke Juteki's throat. Now Juteki does not wish to withdraw, as he commands his troops to rush forward into battle. Shohei rushes forward and slices off his right arm. Now whether it's brains or brawn, Shohei is truly a monster. And with this, Chin has successfully defended the city of Kanyo. Soon afterwards, the rebel army instantly dissolved into an unstoppable rout. Ro-ai realizes that he has failed, as the realization comes to his mind that he probably won't see the Queen Mother anymore. Shohei says that Ryofu's fall from grace is all but assured, with his failed attempt at the capital. Shohei chooses to follow Aisei because he also believes in a unified China, and he believes that Aisei is the one of making that dream a reality. Now the 9-year battle with Ryofu has ended in Aisei's victory. A report comes into Aisei that the rebel army has been driven off, leaving the Queen Mother quite disappointed. I see. So it is I that has lost. When the rebel army made it to Kankuku Pass, the Kanki army absolutely decimated them. "Scrape out his eyes and cut off his limbs," says Kanki. Now it seems like the Chu and the Ai army had a deal together, as Karen is quite pissed off that the idiots from Ai failed. At Kanyo, Ro-ai confesses to the theft of the royal seal, and the usage of it thereafter to raise an army for the revolt. In fact, he took all the blame so that the Queen Mother wouldn't receive any punishment. The Queen Mother then stands up and admits that it was her behind it the entire time and that she should be punished. Now, to eliminate any threats of future rebellions, Aisei plans to execute Ro-ai's children as well. The Queen Mother then prostrates in front of Aisei, begging the king to spare the lives of the two children. Now, Aisei cannot agree to this request, and as he begins to explain his rationale, the Queen Mother leaps up with a knife in her hand, desperate to assassinate the king. "I knew that giving birth to you was a mistake," screams the Queen Mother. Ko is absolutely flabbergasted by the Queen Mother's words, saying that she is still Aisei's one and only mother. Ro-ai cries profusely, as he says that his life found meaning and happiness through the Queen Mother. Now those responsible were thereby torn apart by horses, along with their respective families. Ryofu suggests that he might be Aisei's father, since he was engaged to the Queen Mother in the past. But alas, after calculating the number of days, the timing didn't match up. Though the Queen Mother has lost everything she holds dear, her journey is now over. Aisei then reveals that her two children were secretly smuggled out of the city and are being sheltered right now. Now when a day of peace comes, he will reunite her with them, so he implores her not to let herself waste away. Shin then meets up with Aisei, finding out that Ryofu's punishment is going to be delayed for about a half a year. The two reminisce about their 7 years together, and how Aisei will be the king who unifies China and brings an end to the warring states. Now, based on Shohei's calculations, beginning from now, they have 15 years to unify China. To do this, they will have to strengthen their military and revive the 6 great generals of Qin. And so to this end, Shin must claim one of those spots for himself. At the Qin-Zhao border of Soshu, Shin, Ohan, and Moten meet up to take on the Zhao army. Now if Mobu, To, Osen, and Kanki take up 4 of the 6 spots, there will only be 2 remaining between the 3 of them. Now 5 days later, Enshi falls to Shin. Shin is absolutely flabbergasted by this development, as he wonders who could have done this so quickly. And it turns out that it was Yotanwa and the mountain tribes. Now after helping out Shin 3 years ago at the city of Sai, Yotanwa was granted a title that is equivalent to Great General. So with that means there's currently 5 Great Generals, and only 1 spot available. Soon afterwards, an event took place that sent shockwaves across the entire land. The assassination of Chu's prime minister, Shin. More people show up for Shin's service than they showed up for the king's service a couple days ago. Now it turns out that Shin was the true father of the king's child. The woman's older brother, Rain, had Shin assassinated. And with all the turmoil, Renpa speculates that the other states will try to take advantage of them. A palace man asks Karen to take up the seat of prime minister of Chu, and it's none other than Rain himself. Turns out that Rain had Shin killed to protect his own family. Now Chu holds a vast amount of land, but they need a genius of warfare to properly utilize it to become even stronger than now. Shin's unit then gets recalled from Chu to head over to Koku You Hills to fight the Zhao. The High Shin unit then rendezvous with the Kanki army. Kanki embraces Shin, but the 5,000-man commander instantly draws his sword, feeling a weird sensation. Now that they are here, they're going to learn a couple of things from the Kanki army. Anything goes with Kanki's army. Pillaging, raping, slaughtering, all in the name of victory. Kanki wants to set up an exchange program so that they can better understand each other. Now the Kanki army has 50,000 soldiers, and the High Shin unit has 8,000, as they begin their march towards Koku You to take it from the Zhao. Keisha will lead the Zhao forces alongside General Kisu. The Zhao army of 70,000 looks to defeat the invading Qin army. Now the battle will be difficult, since it consists of no forts or castles, just trees. Therefore, they must gain control of the 5 hills in the area to claim victory. The High Shin unit and the Raido units will serve as the vanguard to control the central hill. Now Kanki expects much from Shin, as the aspiring general says that he'll claim Keisha's head. Kyokai warns Shin that this won't be a simple contest of controlling the hills. Now the High Shin unit is one of the main targets for the Zhao army, as they look to ambush them from the trees. The forest is quite dense, but if they can control the center hill and set up a defensive line, they'll hold a huge advantage. They then get ambushed with a barrage of arrows. Enemies also appear on the right, meaning they're getting surrounded. Ten wants to retreat so they can regroup, as a large man lunges at Shin with a powerful strike. Shin then comes to a horrifying realization that the Zhao army has already captured one of the hills on their side. Kanki is quite disappointed in Shin's incompetence. Bate continues to ferociously attack Shin, as he's impressed with the young boy's talent. Keisha is impressed with Kisu's daringness to dispatch his 2 closest vassals right away in the action. To recapture the hill, Denyu's unit will make a bunch of noise, while Shin circles round and sneaks up on the enemy. When they get to the top of the hill, however, they realize that they've been tricked. And because of this, they have lost sight of the main objective, which was capturing the central hill. Now this would be a huge blow to their original plan. Kyokai's scouting unit comes upon a small village, a sight that surprises them. Bihei finds out that Kanki recruited the other units by forcing them to join the army, or end up getting crushed by him. The Saki clan, which is following close behind, is the cruelest men in Kanki's army. Kanki shows up on his horse, as he says that Shin is already screwed up. With the left side preoccupied, Keisha need only worry about the right side in capturing the central hill. Now Kanki has a special job for Zeno to turn this situation around. Due to Bate and Ryoto's guerrilla warfare, the High Shin unit was struggling to make any progress. Zhao's vanguard was near the central hill, making their advantage decisive. Zeno goes on an absolute killing rampage as Bihei unit rushes into the action. Now if Zhao captures the central hill, the battle will be effectively over, and that cannot happen. News comes in of Kanki's army advancing from the right, so Kisu urges caution advancing up the hill. Keisha does not heed these words, as he's hellbent on capturing the crucial central hill. Raido and Zeno make haste, but are cut off by the Zhao army. Keisha arrives on the battlefield to attack Bihei. Now Bihei survives, but witnesses the slaughter of Kanki's men to Keisha's. Now Keisha managed to cut off Raido's reinforcements, leaving him isolated within the dense forest. And it would seem like Kanki has walked into Keisha's trap, meaning he's about to suffer a huge loss on the first day. Now this entire predicament was outside of Kanki's predictions. However, Keisha overlooked the cunning intellect of the former bandits. They then signaled the flame hair whistle, which meant their backs were against the wall and it was time to resist in a brutal, animalistic way. And although it was disorganized, this tactic would reduce the number of casualties that they would lose on the first day. Now Gakue wants the two officers hunted down at all cost. Later on, Zeno and Raito meet up to burn down the Zhao fortress. And this is the pledge the ex-bandits always make. They never go back home empty-handed, no matter how bad they got their asses kicked. Now Kyokai has not returned to Shin, which means she might be caught behind enemy lines. Kyokai is indeed walled off by the Zhao forces, but they may have an opportunity to attack the enemy from the rear. Now an envoy from Kanki looks to cut off Shin's arm for his screw-up today. Shin vows to make up for lost ground, and to personally cut off Keisha's head in Shin's victory. Now Ten has learned well from the enemy's tactics, and she feels pretty confident that they could push them back on the second day. Now Kyokai will take it upon herself to assassinate the enemy leaders in the dead of night. An impregnable formation. Not a single person capable of piercing these fortified depths. Kyokai meets Ryoto, claiming she'll take his life. He cannot allow her and the Chin army to make it past Koku You. Kyokai gets nicked by a wire, as Ryoto attempts to end her. After the exchange, Kyokai falls down a nearby cliff. Maron from Kanki's camp is here to inform about today's strategy. Now whoever controls the central hill has a 90% chance of winning the battle. If the Haishin units and the Raito units can push them back, they can attack the center army from the rear. They screw up again today, the Saki clan will be here to pay them a visit. Shin's forces perform well, until they realize that the river has been cut off by Batai's army. The standoff that will decide the fate of the Haishin unit. Ten wants Shin to put his trust in her as she thinks up a plan. Without a boat or a bridge, they have no means to fight against the Zhao army. She says that they will thusly construct their own bridge, Haishin style. Now there are two shallow paths that will allow them to cross the river. Shin's army goes down one path and experiences a barrage of arrows. But this is all the plan, they're acting as the decoy. Meanwhile, a small group of elite soldiers will attack from the second path. Ryoto predicted that this would happen, so Batai prepares to move to Ten's location. Unfortunately for Batai, there's a third path that will allow the Chin to sneak behind the Zhao. However, it is very treacherous, and this is the plan that was laid out by Ten. But even though there's a high reward, the risk could cost them their lives, and En and his men are very scared by this. En's men struggle to cross the river, as En himself begins to doubt his capabilities. Though he doesn't possess martial talent or knowledge of tactics, he has a sense of responsibility, which is why Shin can trust him the most. He then finds the confidence to push forward and inspire his men. Not too long afterwards, En's unit attacks the enemy, having fulfilled their responsibility. En's unit tosses rope to Shin's unit as they begin to climb up the cliff. En provides enough of a distraction to allow Shin to enter the fight. Batai receives a report about what's happening, as he remains dumbfounded by Chin's persistence in crossing the river. Zhao's army is thusly forced to retreat, and can't muster up a counterattack without their strategist, Ryoto. Raito's army finds themselves in a staring match with the Zhao. That's because there is a dense forest sandwiched between the two of them. Moran and Kimmo's armies saw little progress as they were evenly matched. Koku You's army, however, was decimating their opponent. With news of the Haishin unit's success, Koku You can focus on slaughtering the enemy commander. Kisu then rallies his troops into a fervor, making Koku You reconsider her attack and ultimately retreat. Kisu instructs his men to go on the offensive, as they slaughter the Koku You units in a flash. After her retreat, the Zhao forces were able to push back the Chin line. Now with the battle lines as drawn here, the armies were in a deadlock with the close of day 2. Shin then wonders where Kyokai could be, as we see that she's being taken care of by some villagers. It is now the third day of battle at Koku You. Batai's formations are getting crushed, but Ryoto returns from his injuries to give out directions. Now Ten wants 90% of their forces to go to the left, and that's where the central hill is located. She is thusly attempting to upset the entire battlefield in Chin's favor. Now with this development, Kisu was forced to divert 30% of his forces to a defensive position. And with this hole in Kisu's forces, it would be unthinkable to let this opportunity slip away. Oi, bring me Ogiko, says Kanki. Now Keisha looks pleased that he can crush Kanki's heart with his hand. Now every officer in the battlefield waited with bated breath for him to make his move. And just as something epic was about to happen, it never did. Nothing happened at all. What do you think, Ogiko? This is fucking hilarious, right? Says Kanki. Kisu is in disbelief that Kanki would waste this opportunity, or perhaps he had something even more devious up his sleeve. Now Ten is less than pleased with this missed opportunity. Now it might be possible that this move proves more beneficial in the long run compared to the short run, but for now, no one knows what Kanki is thinking. Koku You sends a message to Kanki that Kisu holds the key to the battle. Now Kyokai finds out that the soldiers of Ragan have come to this battle. Now 15 years ago, Kisu, Batai, and Ryoto witnessed the killing of almost every single adult in Ragan, the place where they grew up. The lord who perished that day was Kisho, Kisu's father. Now Ragan fought against the Anka, a force which more than doubled their fighting men, and Kisu personally killed the enemy lord, Token. With all the men fighting, the city of Ragan fell to the enemy forces. And to spare the citizens of Ragan, Kisho had to sacrifice himself, his officers, and his soldiers so that the citizens could live on. Now Zhao oversaw this exchange to ensure no harm would happen to the women and children of Ragan. And with this, the soldiers of Ragan were burned alive, as Kisho entrusted the city to his son, Kisu. Now Kyokai is resolute to return to the battlefield. With the fourth day ready to begin, the most devastating combat was at hand, with the main stage set. Kanki is sending reinforcements to the Haishin unit. As they remain focused on holding their position, the fateful fourth day of the Battle of Koku You, Kisu still wonders what Kanki is doing, as the delay only benefits his army. Keisha is furious that Kanki hasn't moved yet, so he decides to use this opportunity to attack for himself. And he's not just attacking anyone, he's directing all his attention at the Haishin unit. And with this move, Kanki begins to smile in a devilish fashion. "I will annihilate you, Haishin unit," says Keisha. The Zhao soldiers give the Haishin unit everything they can handle, and then some. That's when Shin catches Keisha's menacing gaze. Now Riboku marks Shin as one of the main targets, so Keisha wants his head. Keisha's elite forces have Shin surrounded on all sides, but Kisu senses that something is not right. Kinmo, who has served under Keisha for years, finds his commander's decision to be a bit erratic, and sure enough, Keisha is dancing like a puppet to Kanki's tune. Meanwhile, the Haishin unit has been split up into two as things look dire. Batai and Ryoto join the Keisha unit to make things even worse. Now Zeno's army was rampaging through Kisu's ranks, and they were hitting all the weak spots of Kisu's army, and the reason they could do this was because they weren't going for Kisu, they were making a beeline for Keisha. Keisha's strength comes from laying webs, and waiting for his opponent to blunder. But having ventured off into the battlefield, Keisha may have blundered himself. Turns out Kanki has stalled his attacks to lure out Keisha for this very reason. Burn this sight into your eyes as you die, Keisha. The view that you see in front of you now, that is what it feels like to be hunted. Kisu enters the battlefield to attempt to save Keisha from dying. Zeno gives Kisu a rude awakening, but the brave leader refuses to waver. Now this distraction will allow Keisha to escape. Kokuo directs her forces to attack the Zhao defense, since Kisu is currently preoccupied at the moment. Now Kisu's army is having a hard time reaching Keisha. Batai prevents an archer from shooting Kisu through the head. Keisha manages to escape the chaos with this momentary distraction. Kisu's army then gets pushed back by Kokuo, forcing Kisu to go back. Keisha then escapes with a stroke of luck, and he's now ready to exact his revenge on Kanki. Now amidst all the chaos, the Haishin unit vanished from sight, providing them an opportunity to go for Keisha's head. Now Kanki's army wants to take the hill today with an all-out charge. The Zhao army is experiencing great difficulty, but the Ragan soldiers are willing to give it all for this victory. Now Shin's unit gets ever closer to Keisha, as Ryoto deploys his unit to stop them. Out of nowhere, Kyokai enters the fray with a flurry of blows. Now while Kyokai fights off Ryoto, Shin will continue his pursuit of Keisha. Keisha's elite soldiers demonstrate their strength to the Haishin unit. Now Keisha believes it's 5 years too early for Shin to challenge him, but Shin intends to prove him wrong. Shin wants to inspire his men like General Oki did for his army back in the day. "Follow me, Haishin unit," giving it his whole body and soul so that he might claim the enemy's head. Kyokai and Ryoto start fighting, as their wounds are getting the best of them. While Shin's busy, Keisha looks to escape. Naki then provides enough resistance to Keisha's forces to allow Shin to reach the desired location. It is now a duel to the death, with nowhere left to run. Keisha begins by slashing Shin across the face. Keisha is as close as it gets to being one of the Zhao's great heavens, so Shin is hellbent on beating him here and now. Enemy reinforcements close in on the location, so Shin has got to hurry up and deliver that decisive blow, and he does just that. No, I wasn't able to repay my debt, thinks Keisha. A cry unleashed from 10,000 emotions. A roar of triumph achieved. While they escape, Kyokai finishes off Ryoto. She promises that the same fates will not befall the people of Ragan, as she hands him back the idol that she took from him. Now Kyokai is out of breath, and it looks like the enemy forces are bearing down on her. Luckily though, Shin comes in to grab her off of her feet. As the news spreads of Keisha and Ryoto's deaths, Kisu calls Kinmo to meet him at the peak of the hill. Now Kisu entrusts the left half to Batai as he meets up with Kinmo. Kinmo wants to retreat, but Kiso says that no one knows that Keisha is dead. They will thusly fight on while concealing this news. Now Kiso is going to send over some of his cavalry to aid with Kinmo, so that they can upset the balance against Moran. Now before word slips of Keisha's death, they must claim the central hill, otherwise all is lost. The Saki clan then tortures some Zhao soldiers. Afterwards, Kanki orders a complete withdrawal from the hill. And with this, Zhao claims the hill for themselves, making the Kanki army quite confused. The various commanders are quite displeased by this outcome, but Kanki assures them that absolute victory is assured. Now Kisu's army will spend the entire night fortifying the hill, and it's all it means to prevent the Kanki army from taking the hill tomorrow. The next morning, Kisu and Kinmo were greeted by the most unpleasant of all sights. Now Kanki's army brutalizes the weak, as one of the soldiers hands Bihei a rare amethyst bracelet, although Bihei feels quite uncomfortable about taking it. Shin's unit sees the forest fires, as Kyokai goes running off with her horse, thinking of the old lady who took care of her in the village. Shin's group then comes upon a village that has been utterly destroyed, and not too long after that, they come across a pile of desecrated corpses. "What the fuck are you pieces of shit doing?" yells Shin. Kyokai wonders if these men of Kanki did this, and after finding out it's true, she then proceeds to stab one right through the chest. She continues to slaughter them as the men claim that they were only doing this because Kanki said so. Shin's emotions get the best of him, as Ten is worried that they might end up in an all-out battle with Kanki. Shin storms into Kanki's encampment with a look of rage on his face. Kanki reminds Shin he'll do whatever it takes to attain victory. Shin and Raido end up in a fistfight, as Kyokai knocks Kokuo down. Kyokai holds a sword against Kanki's neck, as Raido does the same to Shin. Shin says that they are nothing more than raiders, who will never be capable of unifying China. Kanki says to accomplish this, they'll need to slaughter and pillage on a new scale, which means that Shin is the evil one. He says that Shin is disguising lunacy for justice, which can be quite dangerous. Kyokai reveals that Shin already killed Keisha, but Kanki nonetheless will still continue burning and slaughtering people. Kanki commands his men to cut off Denyu's head, since he sees through Kyokai's empty threats. Bihei interrupts, saying that the village people were stockpiling weapons and passing on information to the Zhao army. Shin calls Bihei a traitor, as the amethyst bracelet falls onto the ground for all to see. Shin then clobbers Bihei across the face, and tells him to never return to the Haishin unit. Shin walks off, as Kyokai excoriates Bihei for acting in this way. "You're a goddamn eyesore. Now piss off before I change my mind," says Kanki to Shin. Now Bihei has put his whole life into the Haishin unit, so he doesn't understand why he received such a harsh treatment. Raido besmirches Shin's name to the point that Bihei attacks him. He defends Shin's good name and says that everyone puts their life on the line for him. Naki then takes care of Raido's troops so that Bihei and the others can return to Shin. Bihei wakes up in Shin's camp, with Shin himself watching over him. Shin tells Bihei about a couple of instances in which he stole some food to stay alive. Shin wants to become a great general like him and Hyo dreamed up when they were kids. And additionally, that's the sort of army that he wants to foster as well. Their hearts aren't empty like the Kanki army, and that's why they are so strong together. And with this, Bihei rejoins the Haishin unit. Kanki passes on a message that says the battle will end today. Kiso then receives a personal message from Kanki, an arch constructed out of human corpses. A note then says that Kanki will deliver an even greater tragedy to the people of Ragan. Every little action or movement performed by this man is impossible to predict and impossible to understand. Kisu is now the commander of the Zhao army, but the Keisha army came to do battle at Koku You, not to save the city of Ragan. And if he chooses to save Ragan, the whole western Zhao region will be decimated. Despite this realization, Kisu decides to return to his city of Ragan. He orders a swift and complete evacuation. Now with Kisu abandoning the hill, the remnants of the Keisha army were charged with defending it. The Zeno clan and the Haishin unit easily broke through the Zhao defenses. And on the 5th day, there was a complete withdrawal of the Zhao forces, meaning that Shin achieved complete victory. Kanki never attacked Ragan, as he would return to the hill to be hailed for his brilliant victory. Now after Kanki's interrogations, he was able to find out Kisu's weak point, and he thusly took advantage of it to secure the victory. Not even Riboku or Shohei could have thought of something like this. It was a gamble that only Kanki could pull off. And because the strategy worked, they only lost half of the forces that they expected to lose. "Just what is this man?" remarked Shin. Now rage is the only thing that drives Kanki. A rage so hot, it can melt even a rock. News of Kanki's victory reaches Kanyo, as Shohei sets events in motion for the lands of Zhao that lay past Koku You. Though Shin is not a fan of Kanki's tactics, he can't argue with the results. Kyokai then reminds him to become a great general by using his own methods, and not someone else's. Naki then requests a transfer to the Haishin unit, which Kanki obliges to. Now lurking in the forest is none other than Riboku, and he's with Shusuju and Bananji. Now they witness Kanki's success, but they also determined his weakness. Moten then arrives at Kokuyo to help with the fortifications. In fact, he's here to relieve the Haishin unit. Moten encourages Shin to go home and find someone to settle down with. Now currently, Mobu is defending against Karen and the Chu, while To keeps an eye on Goho Mei and the Wei army. Now a big war is coming up, so it's important for the Haishin unit to rest up and evolve itself. Ten agrees with this assessment, saying that they need to become stronger. And with this, the Haishin unit was set to rest up. Elsewhere, a meeting between three unexpected people was about to take place. And those people were Saitaku, Riboku, and King Okin, the King of Chi. In Kanyo, fears of another coalition rising up is on everyone's mind. But Shohei assures them that this won't happen. An urgent message then comes in from Saitaku. A report then comes into the Haishin unit that a truce has been organized with the Zhao. Several days later, Riboku of Zhao and King Okin of Chi would pay their visit to Shin. Though this visit was not done with the proper clearance, Saitaku humbly requests that Sei talk with Okin, the two kings who have their eyes on China. Now King Okin catches Aisei off guard while overlooking the city. Now only Shoban and Saitaku are permitted to listen in to the conversation between the two kings. The two formally introduce themselves. Now Okin knows what Sei desires, so he wonders how he'll save the people of the vanquished states. If Sei doesn't have an answer to this, then King Okin will raise up a second coalition army to vanquish Shin. Sei says he is not waging a war of conquest, but one to usher in a new era and a new nation. Okin doubts that this can happen, especially with the multitude of cultural differences between the people. Now Sei will unite the people through law, a system that everyone will answer to equally. Although not the cleanest of answers, Okin is quite impressed with Sei. He will thusly surrender to Aisei, provided he does not go back on his word. Now Saitaku also sought a path to bring China together, but it was through Aisei's words that he now seems hopeful again. That being said, Riboku remains the biggest obstacle to achieving this dream. Sei says that the Qin great generals will be the ones to slay him. Aisei then heads off to meet with Riboku, as Saitaku passes away with a smile on his face. "Your final piece of work is truly one of your greatest yet, Saitaku," says the King of Chi. Aisei takes a seat on his throne as Riboku bows down to him. He begs for Aisei to abandon his dream of unifying China. Now Riboku would have liked to serve under Aisei, but on his current path, unspeakable tragedies will befall all of China. Riboku then offers an alternative, an alliance between all 7 states to achieve long-lasting peace. Aisei does not agree with this solution, as it's only a matter of time before one of the alliances breaks off. Now Aisei understands the consequences of his actions, but he intends to conquer all 6 states and bring them under one banner. Riboku assures Aisei that he will live to regret these words. In fact, if he follows through with his plan, Qin will be the first state to perish. Riboku promises that Qin will never claim Zhao so long as he breathes. Even if Qin throws every general they have at Riboku, it still won't be enough to crush him. He reiterates that Zhao will not fall. It will be the Qin that perish. Now Riboku's emotions got the best of him. That's because a brutal war between the two will cause untold devastation. Afterwards, both Zhao and Qin would open up their coffers to fund the military. The Haishin unit then holds tryouts to weed out the weak and find the strong. Though the tests are rigorous, they are necessary in evolving the Haishin unit. Now a group of archer brothers failed the physical portion, but on the other hand, they have advanced proficiency with the bow. Turns out that their father, Sogin, was counted as one of the 10 bows of China, and he passed on his techniques to his 2 children. Now Sogin's arrows saved many allies within the Dukyo unit, which helped them in their victories. His crowning achievement was his duel with Duke Haku of Wei, where he pierced his right eye. The brothers, Tan and Nichan, are proud of their father and want to head off into the battlefield themselves. Now the two made it into the Haishin unit with their insane level of accuracy. After a grueling test of trials, Shin has found his new 1,000 recruits. He welcomes them all to the Haishin unit, but says that the real test begins now. Shoban then meets up with the Keeper of Legalism, Rishi. Shoban wonders how Qin will create a new system of government after they defeat the 6 states. Rishi says it's difficult to create a law for different groups of people. Law is a wish, a way to guide both a nation and its people towards the ideal state it envisions. They thusly will need to determine the vision they have for the entire country. "Rishi, I beg you, lend us your strength," says Shoban. And with that, the Keeper of Legalism thusly returns to the stage. The court is apprehensive, since he was Ryofu's greatest supporter. Aisei says that they must stand united in their hopes of uniting all of China. Shohei then speaks to the king alone, expressing his concerns of defeating Riboku and Zhao. Now, Riboku has constructed several castles to strengthen the defenses of Western Zhao. In effect, the war will drag on for about 10 years, putting Aisei's deadline for 15 years in serious jeopardy. Zhao possesses mountains which serve as a natural defense against invasions. So Shohei says that they should use the Western campaign as a feint, so that they can move through the south to capture Gyou. If they can manage to capture Gyou, then Canton, Zhao's capital, will fall within 3 years. If they fail, however, all their forces in the campaign will be completely wiped out. It's the 10th year of Aisei's reign, and Ryofu has been stripped of his rank. After a year working out simulations, the campaign in Gyou still seems like a suicide mission. Their biggest issue is supply lines. But Shohei wants to ignore this for the time being. At the border, Moten is shocked by Riboku's fortifications and how advanced they are. Moten, Ohan, and Shin are all recalled to Kanyo. Shohei then reveals the plan of attacking Gyou. Though using Western Zhao as a feint to go to Gyou is completely insane, it would be hard for Riboku to predict this. Ohan, however, considers this a suicide mission. Shohei explains that their 3 units have been independent strike forces, and this was done to cultivate their ability to make appropriate decisions. Sei then enters and says that they must make their names roar in the battlefield to elevate themselves to generals. Shin tells Sei not to worry as they're prepared to kick some ass. And with this, Shin sets off for war and the unification of China. "We will hereby begin our invasion of Zhao's western lands," says Shohei. General Kanki will be one of the commanders for this campaign. In addition, General Yotanwa will be the commander of a different attack force. Now, because of the scale of this campaign, they'll need 3 armies, which means that General Osen will participate as well. And not just that, he'll be the supreme commander. Osen Kanki Yotanwa. A joint invasion between 3 armies, says Shin. What view do those self-assured eyes see? During a military parade, Heki suspects that this war will exceed all their expectations. Kosho, of the 6 great generals, who was purely a strategist, acknowledged Osen's talent. In fact, Kosho said that his talent was on par with the 6 great generals. Though Shohei trusts his plan, Osen may discard it as he sees fit, depending on how the situation plays out. Sei approaches Shin and bestows him Oki's glaive. Shin remembers Oki's words, as he feels confident that he can now wield this in battle. And with this, Sei will wait for news of his success. A gigantic tidal wave of military might set forth for Zhao. Riboku receives word of 200,000 Qin soldiers, all marching towards Koku You. Riboku wants General Kocho and Kisu for the war effort. The Haishin unit has been attached to the Yotanwa army. Now, for them to be successful, they'll need to keep Riboku in the dark as long as possible, which means that he cannot figure out about their plan of going to Gyou. Now, Zhao informants in Qin supply lines have confirmed that Qin is focused solely on the invasion from Koku You. However, this was all a ruse thanks to the underground tunnel system. Now, the real supplies weren't being sent to Koku You, but were instead being kept in Kinnan, which was a lot closer to Gyou.